In today's show, we're talking tiers. This time it's power forward tiers. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_Beeble and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Don't forget, Basketball Monster is open to take your subscriptions. Go check out our projections, draft tracker, whatever your league is, auction league, snake league, head-to-head, points league, whatever it is. We can customize everything to what you need. So check it out. Join up and get all of the draft projections and projections updated literally as they happen throughout the season. So check all that out over there. We're going through our tier show. We've done point guards, we've done shooting guards, we've done small forwards. So naturally, we're doing power forwards now. And to talk about the power forwards, I'm joined once again by Basketball Monster's own Matt Smith. Matt.
Smitty.
Welcome back.
Hello, Josh. Good to be back on. Thank you.
Good to have you on for the fourth of this 5-part series talking about tiers. Tiers explanations in point guard tiers. Go listen to the start of that and you'll hear what we're talking about. So let's just smash this bad boy out. And in tier one, it's there's one bloke and his name is Anthony Davis. I'm seeing a bit of disrespect around for Anthony Davis in fantasy circles. People going, it's a definite number one pick between Giannis and Doncic and Harden. I go, calm down, guys. Like Davis was the number 2 player last year and I don't really see him moving from that area.
Yeah, I'm also seeing a little bit of love for Steph Curry as well, coming in late. Now, I actually have a dilemma with these top 2 picks, Josh, because I have a gut feeling that Anthony Davis could finish the season as the number 1 player. However, I feel that with the number 1 pick in the draft, that James Harden is the better player to build around. Now, I still need to do some more mock drafts and test that theory, but that's my gut feel at the moment, which makes that number 1 decision, if you have it, a difficult one.
You can't go wrong, really. I don't think you can go really wrong. Now, the problem here is
no.
Harden could get traded. Davis could sit games.
Yes. But once again, when we spoke about in small forwards that it's all about, building that solid core, I love the fact that you can potentially pair Harden with Adebayo or DeAndre Ayton. Like with Anthony Davis, is it a Jimmy Butler and then you're having rest and injury risk? Is it Russell Westbrook? Is it Kyle Lowry who both have injury risk? Is it Shea? Is it Chris Paul who has injury risk? Like, I don't know. I just don't quite feel good about that first sort of duo and then trio in the first 3 rounds, but I'll need to do some mocks and test that theory a little bit more, but that's what I'm wrestling with at the moment.
I tell you what I've been noticing as well, and I know you're going to not be for this, but if you punt assists, your team ends up pretty good because people absolutely just froth over them. Man, we need assists, we need point guards, and if you're just not worrying about it, you can just build value and value and value with a bunch of guys, and Davis, he fits that pretty well. Harden's got that assist there. So if you got Harden, I've got to double down on assist in the next one. And then if you don't grab that big man there, you are doing that reach as well. Like you're getting Lowry, you're getting Van Vliet, you're getting Westbrook, you're reaching for Don Mitchell. Like there is that risk in it as well. So if you are really thriving or thirsting over assists, it can sometimes lead you a little bit unstuck. Whereas Davis, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And that might lead you to actually just, I'll take Davis and then I'll take Bam. And then I'll take Shea after that maybe. And then I'm not worrying that much about my assists, but I'm just building everything else up pretty strongly. But there's risk on both of them. Like Harden, it could get traded. Davis might sit out 5 out of the first 15 games. Like who knows? We just don't know at this point what the Lakers are going to do. So there's risk there with both of them. But in back to the tiers, he's still the clear number 1 in terms of power forwards. Anthony Davis is in tier 2. We talked about Kawhi in the small forward show yesterday. But the big fella, Giannis Antetokounmpo, jumps into tier number 2 here. And while you look at his overall finish last year, the 14th ranked player, it's not good. But it's because his free throws are horrendous. So that makes him a pretty tough guy to deal with in Roto, but you can deal with it more in head-to-head leagues. But in terms of if we're cutting that category out, he's a top 3 sort of guy, and he will go pretty high in drafts. You're famously anti-punting, Matt. Pick 5 rolls around. Harden's done. Davis is gone. Towns is off the board. Your mate Luka, maybe let's say he's gone. Would you roll it on Yanni, or are you just going to say I'll leave him for someone else?
This is actually the dilemma I was thinking about in the car the other day and trying to work out my top 12 rankings for this season. And this is where it is really difficult with Giannis because at the moment my top 3 is Harden, Davis, Towns.
Yep.
And then I sort of have Curry, Luka, and Lillard as maybe the next 3. If it came down to Giannis, I think I would have to take him in that sort of maybe 6 or 7 range and then decide what to do with free throw. I don't think I can bring it back. I'm going to need like a Devin Booker and then a plus and really work hard. So in that instance, yeah, maybe I do have to write it off and pair him with Ben Simmons and go from there sort of thing. So
or Matt, he was like a 72, 73% guy the last 2-3 years before that. He might just go back to being that, and then it's not a problem. So
and that's the other thing. So I'm still sort of working through all that. Hopefully I don't have that dilemma, but if it comes to it, then yes, it's an excellent question. And who are your top sort of 3, 4, and 5? Let's say in head-to-head leagues.
Well, people are going to see it when I write the article for Basketball Monster in my one-man mock draft, but it's Harden, Davis, Towns, and Yanni are my top 4, and that order can interchange. And then it's that next group that you mentioned: Curry, Lillard, Doncic, Jokic, Trey, and there's your top 9 for me. So I've got sort of a top 4, then a next 5. And I think it's sort of, I don't mind in terms of if you want to include Steph in the top 5, I don't mind that as being a grouping. But I think if we look at it as a 4-5 split or a 5-4 split, it seems right. But I would have Yanni pushing towards the top end of that versus the bottom end of that because I really don't care about the free throws. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you.
Yep.
Tier 3. Who's in it? Let's have a look. Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant. We talked about Durant yesterday. We didn't talk huge amounts about Jason Tatum. So I don't even know if we talked about him at all, but let's talk about him now because he is a guy that is... Yeah, there are people who will say, well, because I tweeted this out, the top 9 looks pretty strong. And they go, that's fine, you get to pick 9 and you pick Jason Tatum. I'm like, are we sure about that? Because I'm not sure about that. He put up some real big numbers in the January, February, March portion of the season. A portion of the season, which we have to remember that Kemba missed some time, Jaylen Brown missed some time. I think Marcus Smart also missed some time. And in that time, he shot 46% from 3. And those confluence of events aren't all going to come together. He was relatively solid in the bubble, but do we expect him to be that top 8 guy, averaging 29 a game and shooting 46 from 3? Because I don't. It's a stretch. He's really good. There's a lot of good players around him still, even though Gordon Hayward's gone. So I think if you're taking him at 8 or 9, it's probably just like... Well, I'm just hoping that he's going to jump up. It's almost like the same as I'm taking Luka at 1. Like, no, you're not. You shouldn't be. Yeah. Because you're hoping that he gets 1.5 steals a game, which he hasn't shown an ability to do. And I think that's a similar thing to taking Tatum that high. And I think this is the right spot to have him. Of course it is, because I projected him here. But I think this is the right area. But he's got some upside, as does Durant in this area.
I don't want to preempt your one-man mock again, but who would you take at 10? And who do you have first, Tatum or Durant?
Can't tell you who I had at 10 because I don't remember. I think at 10 I went Kawhi, but I'm not sure. I think I rolled the dice there.
Yep.
And I definitely had Tatum ahead of Durant.
I'm the same. I have Tatum ahead of Durant.
It's close.
Like I mentioned in small forwards tiers, and I said about gambling on Durant, and his injury, and that he goes top 5. I think, like I said, in the first instance, I would try to play safe and lock in Tatum if he's gone, and then I think I will probably roll the dice with Kevin Durant. So I have Tatum slightly ahead as well.
It's marginal though, and it really is a personal preference thing. But I think Tatum will go off the board before Durant in most drafts.
Yeah.
Tier 4.
A bit safer.
We've got Kristaps Porzingis. We also have the crucifix, Christian Wood. Now, his ADP is not even close to these other guys. We'll talk about him in a second. Now, let's talk about Porzingis. The injury is a worry. We're expecting a mid-January return at this point. If he was playing the full season, I'd be really comfortable with him as a top 20 guy. I'm obviously not at this point. So I think he fits fine here. I always hate drafting a guy who I know is injured heading into the season where there is ambiguity about his return. And that's where we sit with Porzingis. So I'd love to avoid him as much as I can. Do you feel similar?
I do. I'm really, really nervous about Porzingis this year. To go as far as saying I'm this close, and you can't see me, Josh, but I've got like my fingers close together. I'm this close to having him on my bust list. I'm just so nervous about the extent of his leg and lower body injuries over his career. I don't know where he's going. I have feared that he's going to be like the next Yao Ming, and that he's just going to disappear one day. We're never going to see him again.
I think that's fair enough to have that worry, given what's happened with the severe ankle issues, the knee problems, the persistent knee problems, and now another knee, the ACL, and another knee injury. It's obviously a concern. Now, I just brought something up because I wanted to look at post-trade deadline stats, including the bubble, because I wanted to talk about the next guy, Christian Wood. But it brings up an interesting thing to me. And, I am preempting you a little bit here, but do you know Kristaps Porzingis in that period, post-trade deadline, was the 5th ranked player on a per-game basis?
Yeah, he went nuts. He was unbelievable.
So if he is healthy, he is smashing. Interestingly, the 7th ranked player there was Jason Tatum in that group, ahead of guys like Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the bloke we are going to talk about here is the crucifix. Christian Wood was the 13th ranked player there, 35 minutes a night, 24 and 10, a block, a steal, 1.5 threes, 66 true shooting, crazy numbers. In Houston, they are at least bringing a center in him. Their big men stocks are still pretty low. There are going to be people that question the position of Wood here, especially the people who are already drafting on Yahoo, considering his ADP is at 60. I think it's 69 over on ESPN.
Giggity!
So with Wood here in this tier, again alongside a Porzingis, it's relatively high for Christian. I don't think he's doing what he did in Detroit, because that Detroit team was without Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard, Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson. No, those guys weren't there. He's now going to have Harden and Westbrook there. But maybe you are, but I'm not worried about DeMarcus Cousins coming in and taking his minutes. Are you?
No, I'm not worried about Cousins. You made my point there with Harden and Russell, Westbrook, that is. Like I said, in Detroit, it was basically his team. He was doing whatever he wanted. He's not going to have that his own way in Houston. It's going to be all Harden, all Westbrook. Westbrook coming in, getting the rebounds, and then he'll still get the lobs and a few touches on the offensive end. So we're not going to get that Detroit Christian Wood, but we're still going to get a top 50 player and potentially a top 40 player. And if Harden and Westbrook get traded, and depending on what comes back, of course, it could work in his favour. So a little bit of a risk-reward type pick here in the early mid-rounds.
Is it a risk, though? Because when we talk a lot in the past about, Harden's number one, but now he's got Chris Paul coming. Now he's got Russell Westbrook, and he had that buffer. Wood had the buffer of being like the 13th best player. So if he drops 40 spots, he's still 20 spots ahead of his ADP. So that buffer is sort of built in there, that those guys are going to be around, and he's going to get significantly less usage. Doesn't necessarily stop his efficiency, doesn't necessarily stop his shot blocking or his rebounding. Again, the three, I'm going to say big men, are PJ Tucker, DeMarcus Cousins, and Christian Wood. That's it. There's no other power forward. They're relying on Jay Sean Tate. And yes, that is an actual player who's on this team, who played down here in the NBL last year. Who else is their power forward? That is their rotation at the moment at the 4 and the 5. Wood's getting 30. He has to get 30. I just don't see any other way. And he'll play alongside Cousins. He'll play alongside Tucker. I can't see how he... Maybe they just go, we're playing PJ at center again. I would be pretty stunned, because I think they all hate Daniel House and they'll be limiting his minutes.
Probably not.
I just don't think it's happening.
The risk I talk about is the risk that we haven't seen him do this for a whole season.
For sure.
We've seen it for a short amount of time, and he went nuts. So, can he put up those numbers night after night after night? And not only that, but in a condensed season. That's the risk. And we haven't seen it before.
The counter I'll give to that, not to talk too much about Christian Wood here, the counter I'll give to that is that every time we saw him play, every time the per 36 numbers, and in those games where he'd get the minutes, it was always the same. He did it for New Orleans. He did it at times for Charlotte. He did it in the G League. He did it in college. Whenever he played, it was always the same. and he just never got the opportunity to. So it's not like I think that his numbers are going to all of a sudden fall in the tank. It's maybe does his on-court concentration fall off and the minutes reduce down, but every time he's been out there, the per 36s line up with when he actually plays 36. And no matter what team, it all seems to just always look the same for Christian Wood. And to me, that's a positive. But being on 6 teams in 7 years, all on minimum deals, he's obviously a red flag in the other direction. Let's look at Tier 5, and people will be critical of this, Matt, I'm sure. The Baptist John Collins in Tier 5, Pascal Siakam in Tier 5. We've got Christian Wood ahead of Siakam, ahead of John Collins. What's wrong with you, dickhead? People will say that, and hey, bring it on, because I could be wrong on that. Jaren Jackson in there as well, another player that I'm worried about with the knee injury heading into the season, like Porzingis and Domantas Sabonis. But let's talk John Collins, because he was the 12th ranked player last season, and I've got him in Tier 5, which seems outrageous. I have my reasons for it. I want to hear your thoughts on Collins.
I'm really worried about the Hawks this season, and I tweeted this a couple of weeks ago when I think it was the Bogdanovic signing, that they've gone from this up-tempo team who was super fantasy friendly, Trae Young leading it, John Collins, the number 2, was doing whatever he wants, and then we had, the sleepers or the flyers or whatever you want to call them in Kevin Huerter and Cam Reddish and potentially Hunter as well. And it was looking like a really exciting fantasy team. Now you bring in Gallinari, you bring in Bogdanovic, the Hawks drafted Onyeka with pick 6 as well, so another center. So added Rajon Rondo. All of a sudden they're too deep at every position. And what's happening with Collins? Is he purely a 4? Is he a 5? And then what happens to Clint Capella and Onyeka? Gallinari. It's just a weird fit all round, and I don't like it, Josh. It's really disappointed me this offseason because I love that Hawks team so much and what they can bring for fantasy purposes, and now it's just less than an ideal scenario for all of them.
I'm not going to say they hate John Collins at Atlanta, but they don't like him. They don't think that he is part of the young core. And again, when I talk to people, they would be pretty happy to get rid of him if they can find the right deal.
Is this because of the suspension thing, or is it something else?
I didn't get into the details on it. I assume that's part of it, but it's also that they don't, and other teams don't, value him as a player as much as what we do in the fantasy, because he's poor defense. And I think there's a lot of you're just putting up these numbers because the team's fast paced and you're not that good. There's a bit of that thought around with John Collins, and I'm with you. I don't know how the hell this all works. Gallinari is the backup to begin the season, and real big emphasis on the begin, because that's exactly what Schlenk said, but in all the aggregation, it gets cut out. We've talked to his reps to be the backup, and it's like, that's where I imagine it starting, was the end of that sentence. So that's not great confidence. And then Capella and Okongwu should play as a number 6 pick. He may not straight away, but he should play, and that cuts out some minutes at center. I tell you what, I was one of the biggest John Collins fans. Like in the draft, pick 19, I go, this is ridiculous. Why do they let this guy slide so much? Nonsense. I had him, I think, as a top 20 guy last year before the season. I go, draft this guy, he's going to smash. And now we're talking about a bloke whose rank is number 13 on Yahoo, top 20 on ESPN. I'm not even going close to touching him in that area. Like, not even close. And the thing is that even if Gallinari didn't come in, even if Okongwu didn't come in, he still has to work out how to play next to Capella, a guy that can rebound and a guy that blocks shots and a guy that's going to push him further out to the perimeter, which drops rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. So we had that shitness going on, and now other blokes coming in. It is just a mess of negative factors. And he might prove me wrong. It's a lot to overcome, though.
So sad for fantasy purposes, Josh.
What do we make of Jaren Jackson, who, man, this guy's shit house. He can't grab rebounds. That's fine. He also does stuff that no one else does, and I understand that everyone drafts a big man because they want rebounds, but have a look what else he does. Like, this guy just bangs threes in, he blocks shots, and he can get significantly better there. He hits his free throws. He scores at a high level. Offensively, he's been significantly better than expected. I obviously think this is the right spot to have him, but yeah, he is coming into the season again with a knee injury. He's ranked 80th on ESPN, which seems pretty ludicrous to me. But again, that is the worry with the knee injury of when he's coming back. Sometime in January is the expectation.
Yeah, well, I've read a quote that it was he'd be out, inverted commas, a minute, which is a really weird time frame. Like, is a minute a week? Is it a month? Like, obviously,
Memphis are
like a short
dreadful.
amount of time.
Memphis are dreadful at giving out injury information as well.
Yes, they are. But like when this dude puts it together, he's the sort of guy that can put up a top 12, top 15 fantasy season and
Absolutely.
go and win you a league on his own.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that that's this year. The other thing with Memphis, they're going to want to get him back really quickly and get him up to speed so that they can push for that playoff spot because the West is so deep.
Yeah, they're going to struggle.
Going to be in contention. Memphis will struggle, but if they can keep in contention early without him and bring him back, and then if they're in contention come that last month of the season, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are just going to be putting up berserk numbers, pushing as hard as they can for that playoff spot or to get into the what's that wild card round thing that they're doing as well. So
play in or some nonsense.
Play in, yeah, yep. So that is the long term upside and the light at the end of the tunnel for Jaren Jackson Jr. Come what will it be, April, May, I think, by the end of the regular season, he could just be putting up, 20 odd points, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks.
3 rebounds.
And just, going insane.
Siakam lived up to my expectations last season. I wasn't as high on him as others, so that was fine. And Sabonis, we didn't see him in the bubble, but he should just go back to, again, just being very similar. So we don't need to harp too much on those guys. There's not much to really talk about, I don't believe. Tier 6, Michael Porter, who we talked about yesterday. Let's talk about Draymond Green, who's in this area. And this is one that's really interesting to me because he's a name that appears on people's do not draft lists. Man, this guy sucks. He was so bad last year. If someone gets hurt, he's going to be trash. He was the 76th ranked player last season, despite being trash, despite actually being bad and playing 28 minutes a night. He was ranked 76th. So will he try? Probably. Will he play more minutes than 28? Probably. Will he be better than 76? Almost guaranteed. And that's why we've got him in this area. But again, it's one of those ones, Matt, like the old Paul George minutes question. Where was Draymond Green ranked? Someone would say 150th. Like, he's not even close. Like, he wasn't that bad, but it just appeared that he was that bad.
Yeah, and his 2 strong categories of the assists and steals would really help his value as well. Obviously, the points are an issue, so you need to factor that in, and the efficiency as well. But yeah, I'd be quite content taking Draymond Green in the mid rounds if he was the right fit with my team and seeing how it played out. And are you for the Warriors making the playoffs?
You haven't gone through and done it yet, but yes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I just have them in as well, which a motivated Draymond Green, and it could be an interesting season.
Yes, it will be interesting to see how that team plans out. We talked about Michael Porter on yesterday's show about small forward, so we'll move on to tier 7 now. Tony Warren, we talked about him as well. Now, Robert Covington. Obviously put up crazy numbers in Houston. That was always going to be on the cards. Minutes going up, playing at center. But now he goes to Portland where he has to battle Carmelo Anthony, and Melo's there. Derek Jones Jr., Rodney Hood. Now Covington's clearly the best player out of that quartet, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that he gets the 35 minutes and up. But my big worry here in terms of why I've got him lower than where he was last season, and that's down here in tier 7, is that he played... We talk about PJ Tucker being the center. Robert Covington was the center in terms of protecting the rim. So that's why he was getting 2 blocks a game. And that is not happening in Portland. So that's why I've got him down lower than where he was last year.
Yep, can't argue with that. Yusuf Nurkic, who we haven't spoken about yet, but we'll do in the next podcast, is in for a huge season. Really, really just a perfect fit in terms of real life. Fantasy, once again, those steals are the standout, 1.6. Couple of threes per game, the strong rebounds. But once again, I just feel I can maybe find that a little bit later on in drafts. So, we talked about someone like a Kelly Oubre or OG, Mikal Bridges in the small forward tiers. Maybe you can hang off 3, potentially even 4 rounds and use that pick earlier on a little bit wiser.
Well, he's going at 44 in Yahoo, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to take a crack at him there. So if he's going to that spot, then I'll look elsewhere. But there's no guarantee that that's how your draft's going to pan out. But that's where it's looking at the moment. He's 53 on ESPN. Might be a little bit rich as well. It's not outrageous though. Let's look at tier 8. We talked about Tobias Harris yesterday about how he's the most boring player in basketball. And then there's 3 interesting names here. There's Kevin Love, there's Julius Randle, and there's Julius Randle 2.0 in Zion Williamson. Of course, he's nothing like Julius Randle, but that is what people said because he was chunky and was left-handed. Kevin Love, Matt, has Kevin Love been traded yet? Because 5 years I've been hearing it. Man, Kevin Love is going to get traded. It's going to get traded. Just, it hasn't happened. Is it ever going to happen? Is this the year?
Never say never, mate. And if it's going to happen, then why not make it in 2020 just with everything else that's going on? So, once again, I love having big men who block shots. So I won't be drafting Kevin Love. I won't be drafting Julius Randle, and I probably won't be drafting Zion either because his free throw percentage is a bigger negative than his field goal percentage, which is saying something.
Yeah, he's got the second worst free throws, I think. Compared to Giannis.
Free throws is the
worst? It could be.
The worst.
It might be.
And his field goal, was the biggest. And we're saying,
it is the worst.
Like 2's elite. He's at 3.26, I think, for field goal and a minus 3.7 for free throw, which is just ridiculous. And unfortunately, those defensive stats didn't translate in his rookie year. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I want to see him put together a full season before I,
I'm definitely not wasting pick 24 on him, which is where he's going on Yahoo. But if you punt free throws on the projections, I think he comes out at 23. So that's how big of a drop that free throw percentage caused him. And I'll throw this one out there as well. I don't like the fit with Steven Adams. No. But Steven Adams knows how to get out of the way for someone to come in and grab boards. And Zion's boards were down. His defensive stats were down. If those defensive stats come back to anything close to in college, and he comes out and averages 29 a game on 60% shooting with 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, then I don't hate it as a top 24 pick. There's no value in doing it at this point, but it's not an outrageous scenario. Like if I said to you, that Kevin Love or Julius Randle's going to come out and get 2 blocks a game, you'd say, come on, like I know it's late, but calm down. But if I said Zion's going to do it, you go, I could see it happening. That's the difference. It's like these guys might be around that same. Well, Zion's not going to be around because he's going to be gone in the second round, and it's probably going to cost someone. But theoretically, if they're around the same spot, like that upside for him, like that, the possibility of being that is clearly there.
It's going to be fun. This is going to be good. This is going to be a good season. Hopefully we'll get a full season and COVID stays out of the way, but this is going to be interesting.
We're not going to talk about this guy because he's not in the tiers, but the new Jedi, Obi-Wan Toppin.
Hello there.
People are looking at the projections going, man, how have you got him projected so low? Because there's a guy that's currently in front of him who is not good, but he's a better player than Obi Toppin, and that's Julius Randle. So what do people think's happening with Randle? Do they just think that the Knicks are just saying, well, sorry, you're done? I would be pretty surprised if Tom Thibodeau, coach who notoriously hates rookies and hates players who can't play defense, is going to say, nah, we'll throw Obi Toppin in and play him 30 night and sit Julius Randle on the bench. I would be... I would not... It won't happen. I can't even come up with it. It won't happen. How's it going to happen?
If it happens, would you get a Tom Thibodeau tattoo?
Yeah, right across my dick. I won't show it on the podcast just yet. Maybe that's for Patreon only members. There's no way. Can you imagine Tom Thibodeau? Can you imagine Tom Thibodeau screaming at Obi Toppin, shift your hips, and Obi going, I can't, they're fused together. I can't. Slide. I can't, Tom. I just can't do it. Like, how long is it going to last? 2 minutes? It's just, unless Tom has changed his ways, then I'll be pretty surprised if that actually goes down.
It'd have to be pretty big to get Thibodeau tattooed on it as well, by the way.
I'll just go with Tibbs. Just the familiar. All right, before we get into it out of hand, let's go to tier 9.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of blokes in this tier. Jeremy Grant, Lowry Markkanen, Rashawn Holmes, Bojan Bogdanovic, and the Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock!
Just really tied in from the last tier. All right, so Jeremy Grant, let's talk about him. He thinks he's good. He's not that good, but he's going to have the opportunity in Detroit. How do you think that's going to go for him?
Oh, this once again is a mess. Is he playing small forward? Is he playing power forward?
Has to.
If he's playing power forward, what's happening with Blake Griffin? Is he staying? Is he going? Are they playing them both together? I don't understand it. I don't understand why he signed with Detroit for the same money. Yes, it was for greater opportunity, but surely, you want to be winning and enjoying basketball and making playoffs and having a chance to compete for a championship, which isn't going to happen here. So I don't understand the decision or the fit how he has fantasy value.
I guess that's the question for him is that, okay, same money in Denver or Detroit. So, Matt, if I pose this question to you, Matt, we'll pay you the same money. You can go to a team that's successful, or you can go to a team where you'll look absolutely exposed as a guy that shouldn't be a number one option, and you might actually get embarrassed. It's surely not that hard of a choice. And I heard that his agent vigorously suggested that he take the Denver offer. Like, Jeremy, what are you doing? Wow. Take the Denver offer. I heard that. I don't know how true it is. But surely, hey, push me into a number one option so I can get embarrassed, or I can go and maybe win a title and get paid the same money and be still really good. There's some decisions that were absolutely made there. And he'll be better than last year in terms of fantasy. I have no doubt about that, because he was the 173rd ranked player and played 27 minutes. So he's going to get better than that. And that's why we've got him in this tier. But, oh man, it could get rough. What do you make of Rashawn Holmes, who was great last year? And now, of course, the big fella, Hassan Whiteside, is there.
The world.
Who starts? Holmesy? Whiteside? Like, what's going on in that front court?
Yeah, good question. That, to me, just smells like a timeshare.
Yeah, it seems rough.
That's not good for fantasy. We know it's not good for fantasy. So while they're both healthy, it's going to be pretty much an avoid. One gets injured or misses time, then it's going to blow up and be pretty strong for whoever owns them in your league. But I can't see myself targeting either, and then we throw Marvin Bagley to the mix as well. So once again, the Kings, it's not a good situation, Josh.
Let's go through tier 10 now to round this out. Davis Bertans, Darius Basley, Aaron Gordon, Paul Millsap, Marvin Bagley III, Montrezl Harrell, Blake Griffin, Serge Ibaka, and PJ Washington. It's a big list. These are all guys at the end. The name there that doesn't appear to be like the others, Matt, is Darius Basley. We talked a little bit about this. Was it off air or on air? I don't even remember at this point.
No, it was off air. Yeah.
It was off air. We talked a little bit about Basley. So talk us through it. Why is he in the mix with these other guys who have proven track records?
So the first thing, once I saw the projections, like, that's interesting. Went back to look at his bubble stats. Now, I know it's only a small sample size, but 13 points, 6.3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 0.4 steals, 0.8 blocks, 2.4 threes in just the 27 minutes per game. We have him projected at 32 minutes per game. And obviously then the numbers come out better.
Maybe that's high. Maybe that's high. That could be high. There's no doubt about that.
Maybe it is, but even if it's 28 minutes, there's still some good numbers to think about. Shea's going to obviously do whatever he wants. Al Horford's going to get a few touches. A beautiful passing center next to Basley. Who else is going to score, rebound, assist, do the defensive stuff there in OKC? Yes, maybe Dort will do a little bit. Is it going to be Hamidou Diallo? Is it going to be Trevor Ariza? I don't know. The more I think about it and the more I talk through it, Darius Basley is looking like your typical sleeper. This could get interesting. So watch this space.
Yeah, look, taking me to the last pick. He's ranked outside the top 300 on Yahoo. Trevor Ariza's there. I fully expect Ariza to not be there by the time that the season starts, or if not, pretty soon afterwards. I don't think he'll be there. Pokusevski, what was that?
Bought out, Trevor Ariza?
Or traded on somewhere. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but he's not going to be there. And he's not going to be taking minutes away from Basley, would be my guess. They're not giving him to Pokusevski at this point. They're not playing Al Horford at the 4. It has to be him. It'll be him and Dort and Shea and Horford, and then that 5th spot is up for grabs in the starting lineup. It might be Diallo, it might be Teo Maledon's a name to watch for, it might be your old mate Ty Jerome, maybe it is Trevor Ariza for a little bit of time, but Basley's going to be in that starting 5, and he may not be as good as he was in the bubble. And in those bubble games, I just brought it up, he played 8 games. He's 20 years of age, by the way. He's not going to turn 21 for another 6 months. He played 28 minutes a night and averaged 13 points. And that's not great. 2.5 threes. 6 rebounds, 0.8 blocks, 43, 73 from the field and the line. This is a rookie who didn't play in college at all. His first real taste of a big role. Had a usage of 19% and was a top 120 player in the bubble. It's enough for me to take a late round flyer on him for sure.
Yeah, I really like it. Now, Josh, I can't let you get away this easily.
Here we go.
I just want to talk about Aaron Gordon for a minute.
Yep.
Now, he is a terrible fantasy player. Poor efficiency, low rebounds, no defensive stats. Gordon's been in the league for 6 seasons. How many top 75 seasons has Aaron Gordon had in 8-cat ranking?
Top 75, did you say?
Yes.
I thought you were going to say top 50, and the answer to that is 0. I know that.
Top 50 is 0, correct.
Top 75, I think he's had 1, if that. I think it's 1.
Very good, Josh. Never doubted you. He has only had 1 top 75 season, and that was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Now, last season, I think he was 120th.
Yeah, shit house last
The year
season.
before was 80, and then the 17-18 season, he was ranked 65th. He's just not a good fantasy player, so please don't draft him.
It's not it's not like, oh, well, Jonathan Isaac's out, so he's going to just get all this usage. Or Isaac wasn't a usage player. It's not usage for Gordon. He just doesn't shoot well from the field, from the line. He doesn't get steals, doesn't get blocks, doesn't get assists, doesn't get rebounds. The only thing he sort of does well-ish is score. And Isaac wasn't out there just jacking shots left, right, and center. It's Fournier, it's Fultz, it's Vucevic who are getting all those shots. And Gordon's just going to sit around and play some okay defense without generating defensive stats. Yeah, you're right. He's not good. And he was trash last year.
Yep.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate getting quizzed. Yeah, a bunch of guys in this thing, but these are all sort of, if we're talking upside players, you've got Basley there, you've got PJ Washington as well as a decent upside guy, whereas, you want to rely on Serge Ibaka or Blake Griffin. Probably not. And when we're talking about tiers at this end of a draft period, I would generally be looking at the upside play. If it doesn't work, then go grab Serge off the waiver wire. If someone else has got him, oh well, you'll find someone else who is out there in general. Matt, I reckon that'll do us for Power Forward tiers. We've gone a little bit longer today, but we'll be back to talk centers tomorrow. Matt will be here with me to do that as well. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And you can follow me on Twitter. Thanks for asking at SManSports. Go and follow Josh at redrock_Beeble, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
We will talk to you tomorrow, guys. Subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.